Denim is made from a tightly woven twill in which the weft passes under 2 or more warp threads. Denim is an indigo-dyed cotton twill fabric in which the weft passes under 2 or more warp yarns.
Ball warping is a process used in denim manufacturing to prepare warp yarns for weaving by winding them onto a large ball-shaped frame.
Bundle yarns. Gather 300 to 450 bobbin yarns into bundles. Wind yarns. Wind the bundles onto a roller to form a ball warp. Wind onto warp beam. Wind the ball warp onto the warp beam. Dye. Dye the warp yarn in rope formation. Rebeam. Rebeam the dyed ball warp into individual yarns on section beams. Slash. To impart the size materials on the surface of the yarn. Take to loom. Thread the ball warp through the heddles and read on the loom. Weave. Weave the yarns on a loom to form the fabric.
Ball warping is suitable for the rope dyeing method used to create denim. It has several benefits, including high work speed, high creel capacity, greater efficiency than other warping processes, and low maintenance. Warping section. Warping is the process of transferring a number of yarns from a creel of single-end packages forming a parallel sheet onto a beam. The main objectives of warping is to get the required number of ends as per the set calculation, to get the required length of yarn on each beam of the set, to wind a specific type of package required by the subsequent process. The most commonly used types of warping include direct, high-speed warping, sectional warping, and ball warping. Another objectives of warping: preparation of warp yarn beam, winding of yarn parallel to each other on warping beam, reducing the yarn faults like thick and thin places, large knots, etc., winding the predetermined length of yarn, combination of small packages, finding the long length of warp yarn, preparing for the next process. Lease are inserted at regular intervals, which can set automatically on the machine, generally on every 100 meters. The lease is inserted. The lease also helps in yarn separation after sizing. Ball warping process. In ball warping, 350 to 500 yarn ends are pulled from the creel. The yarns then pass through a comb-like device, reed, which keeps each warp yarn separate and parallel to its neighboring ends. At intervals of every 250 to 1500 yards, a lease string is placed across the sheet of warp yarns to aid yarn separation. The yarns then go through a funnel-shaped device called a trumpet or condenser, which collapses and condenses the sheet of yarn into rope form. At intervals of every 250 to 1500 yards, a lease string is placed across the sheet of warp yarns to aid yarn separation. The yarns then go through a funnel-shaped device called a trumpet or condenser, which collapses and condenses the sheet of yarn into rope form. Yarn path diagram of ball warping. The rope is wound onto a long cylinder called a log on a machine called a ball warper. Indigo dyeing will take place in rope form. Packages of yarn are preconditioned before ball warping. Packages are loaded into the creel, larger lots magazine transfer creel, and smaller lots, swing gate or truck creel. Packages are placed on adapters. An adapter supports the package of yarn and ensures that the package remains aligned to the tensioning devices. Advantages of ball warping are: 1. Inexpensive, i.e. lower operational cost. 2. Does a marginally adequate job of maintaining yarn tension. 3. Simple to thread up. 4. Low maintenance requirements.